Wow, the momentum's building, isn't it, you guys? It is totally building. And every day I think of what more can I teach these people who are trying to figure out this new Canada H-1B holder open work permit. And many people who haven't spent a lot of time wondering what the fuss is about, guys, this is really a big deal. You know, and the reality is when it comes to your future in the US, if you're an H-1B visa holder, you may have fantastic opportunities and there's no need to even consider Canada. But you could very well be an individual that has been sitting and languishing for years on work permits, hoping to go through and become a green card holder and obtain permanent residence in the US and be looking at a 20, 25, 30-year wait. Well, what happens to your kids? Your kids age out. Then what happens? They're not included, right? It's harsh. It's quite cruel. And so what are the opportunities to justify considering Canada? Well, right off the bat, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 reasons that H-1B work permits can fail. And really the top 5 are not in any one particular order. And we probably could combine some of them together, but I separated them out for a reason. So that's what we're going to cover today. The top 5 reasons if you submit and choose to submit, they will fail. But for people who are considering Canada as an option as an H-1B visa holder, the reality is this is a 3-year open work permit to the first 10,000 that apply. Starting July the 16th is when it's going to launch. We are yet to receive instruction from IRCC on exactly where the portal is going to be, where you're going to apply. But if you watch some of my previous videos that I've done here on the Canadian Immigration Institute and across all of the channels where this is being broadcast to, I just did one yesterday and I talk about where I think at least there's a really, really good candidate location for where they're going to do it. I won't get into that today because today is all about helping you guys to avoid those most common mistakes that I believe people are going to fall into. And this is a one-shot deal. If you don't get in this time, I really do not see this as something that's going to just magically open up every year for another 10,000 H-1B visa holders in the US to take advantage of. It's kind of a perfect storm. Canada is really trying to target tech people, the high tech industry. They know there's been lots of layoffs in the US, so Canada's looking to capitalize. You guys are great. You guys are the people that we want. You're educated. You've got great work experience. You've got skills in the STEM area where, we just are not pumping out grads in Canada like is occurring in the US. And so we're trying to catch up, and that's what this is all about. All right. So, let's jump in here and I will open up for a few questions after, but I want to start off right from the beginning and give you my 5 top tips quickly. And then, yes, if you have questions, by all means, post them right now and I will get to them as soon as we get to the end. This one is alive. I've been releasing more recorded videos, but this one's alive because I want to give you guys a chance to get your specific questions answered about this process. You can see here that we've got a masterclass that has launched, and every evening I go live for 2 hours answering questions. Now, if you have not yet subscribed, don't worry about it. You can do it. You haven't missed a thing. All of the videos are available to be watched, all the questions asked, all the answers. The course material is literally being uploaded as I record right now. As I go live right now. Our portal is a little bit slower for uploading into our online course software hosting program. And so Igor is working frantically in the background to update, but there's a ton of content that is being released. And let's face it, we may very well wait all the way until Saturday before they launch it. And people that are paying attention, that are following the videos that I produce, that are listening to what I say, are going to be able to put things in place and get ready no matter what IRCC throws at them for a location for applying. But for many people who have no clue, they're going to be faced with a very daunting task to try to get their application submitted fast enough to get in with that first 10,000, well, really the only 10,000 group. So there's in the description, there should be a link to subscribe, and I encourage you to come and join us. You haven't missed anything, because more than likely I'm going to be jumping on Saturday, going crazy live, talking about exactly what people need once we figure out what it is. But in the interim, I pretty much know what they're going to do. They can only ask for so many documents. They can only ask for so much information, and I'm going to teach you, and that's what I do in the course, exactly how to set things up. Now, in this, I want to give you the top the top 5 reasons for applications can get rejected. So let's jump in there, and I'm going to pull those up for you right now. Let's shrink this one down. Number 1, right here, failing to submit your application fast enough. Guys, you can do everything right, but there is no time to be lollygagging. When this portal opens up, I don't know how many people are actually going to apply, right? There's what, close to 500,000 H-1B visa holders, at least that have been issued. I don't know if they're still working or they're laid off or what the situation is, but last figure I kind of caught a glimpse of was around 500,000. And so how many of those are going to consider applying for an open 3-year work permit to Canada? Well, probably a lot. And the last time we had this go around, the TR to PR pathway, it literally took half a day for it to fill up the 40,000 spots for the one international graduate category, which to a large extent is individuals like you who are tech savvy, who are sophisticated, who can move quickly. And so I'd created a course back then and workshopped close to 500 people, and those who get their applications in the quickest and making sure that they're complete and correct. Literally, IRCC, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, the immigration department, has said that they will process work permits in 0 to 2 months. Why 0? Because there's going to be no backlog, no delay. Watch the previous video in this playlist and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so failing to submit your application fast enough. I want to dive into this. There's 10,000 spots. They've said that they'll keep it open for a year or until 10,000 spots are filled. My goodness. Do they seriously think that it's going to take a year? I personally think it's going to fill up in the first day. I could be wrong, but I really doubt it because there's no real drawback to submitting the application. Ultimately, if you get that work permit granted, you still have the ability to choose whether or not you even want to use it. You may never, you might not be able to leave the US because of visa restrictions. Who knows? You may never use it, but applying, having that option available is pretty darn attractive as a backup in case things don't work out in the US. Some of you may be hearing rumblings in your employer that maybe, the company is looking at more rounds of layoffs. Maybe some of your friends have already been laid off and you think you're the next on the chopping block. Well, this is an awesome backup plan for you and your family. 60 days to figure out another job and to find another employer if you've been laid off? That's not a lot of time. That's not how it works in Canada. And watch some of my previous videos and I talk a little bit more about the flexibility that exists in Canada. But getting prepared, being ready, having the information at your disposal, having the documents that you might need. Even though Canada has described this as to be a streamlined process, I'm teaching my students to have every possible document ready that they could, just in case they need them. And if they do, boom, upload, done. Versus other people, what? It's asking for this. I don't have it. And then trying to race somewhere, like a digital photo, for instance, racing somewhere to get that photo taken while everybody else is submit. And it's like 8,000, 9,000, 9,997. And you're racing back, and boom, it's closed. You can't submit. And often that's what happens. And within the TR to PR pathway, people will get in, they'll start completing their application, and they'll go to click submit, and it won't work. Why? Because all of the 10,000 have already been accepted. They completed theirs quicker than you did, and you lose out on this, what could be a once in a lifetime opportunity, at least for this particular program and what the government is doing right now. All right. So that's number 1. What is number 2 on the list? Well, that's failing to upload the correct document. Now, some people might say, this is stupid, Mark. Why would you even put that on here? Of course, duh. If you don't upload the correct documents, you're going to get your application refused. And that's true. But I'm talking about something deeper here. Uploading the correct document can be a real challenge when you're in a mad frenzy to get things submitted as quickly as possible. Now, in my course, I teach my students the importance of having a buddy, a partner, someone who's there to help watch and oversee and double check and vet, because there isn't a lot of time to do that that checking. And IRCC, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, those guys are ruthless. And if you're missing any documents, they just return it as being incomplete. Sorry. And then in the interim, everybody else has filled in those other 10,000 spots and your opportunity is gone. So when it comes to uploading documents, here's a little pro tip. I always encourage my clients to make sure they've named them properly. If it's a passport, then it says passport hyphen the name of the person. If there's you, then it's not as big of a deal. You know you're the only one that's applying. But if you've got a spouse or children, I have personally experienced issues in my own firm when I had paralegals accidentally upload. I don't use paralegals anymore. I work directly with my clients now through this teaching model, this collaborative model that I use. It's different than a lot of firms. But in that case, they uploaded a birth certificate in the place where the passport should be. And then they re-uploaded the same birth certificate in the birth certificate field. And guess what was missing? Well, you can add it up, a passport. And guess what happened with the application? If they don't have a passport, they return the application. So it should say passport hyphen Mark, passport hyphen Deanna. So that's how you do it and separate it out. And it's important on the document side that you have everything just as low condensed as possible to once again tackle number one, which is submitting the fastest. So keep those file sizes as low as possible. In one of the portals, it has to be less than 2 megabytes. In the other portal, depending upon what they use, it has to be 3 megabytes. So watch the previous videos to learn more about that, or join me in the course and I'll teach you everything I know. Okay, so there's number 2. Number 3 on the list, errors in completing the application form. Once again, duh, come on. Anybody knows that if you haven't filled in the form properly, you're going to get it rejected. True, but that's not what I'm talking about. Entering the information incorrectly includes one of the most volatile aspects of Canadian immigration. Recalling and remembering everything that you've done in the past. Canada has information sharing agreements with the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. And what does that mean? It means that if you've applied to any of those countries in the past and you forgot, well, and you got a visa refused, maybe you applied to visit and then later you got it approved and you forgot about the original refusal. Failing to disclose on a Canadian immigration form that you have had a prior visa refusal to another country can result in not only your application being refused, but you receiving a 5-year bar for misrepresentation to Canada. Why is that a big deal? And why is this number 3 on the list? Because those information sharing agreements also share the fact that even though you hold a US H-1B visa, you just had a work permit to Canada refused for misrepresentation. They don't often say why. Maybe innocently, when you were 18 years old and you're 40 years old now, you applied with your family to go to the UK on a holiday. And you didn't even realize because you were the dependent. And then your parent, when they submitted the application for themselves and their dependent children, you, back, like I said, 20 years ago or whatever, when you were 18, it got rejected and you didn't even know about it. Ask the questions. Make sure you recall, remember, and disclose. Never fail to disclose because it can result in a finding of misrepresentation and a 5-year bar from coming to Canada. And in many cases, those misrep findings result in effectively a permanent bar. It's hard to overcome those. So don't make that. And it's innocent. We're talking about innocent mistakes here. This is supposed to be a simplified process. Do you see why I'm not talking about deficient reference letters or inability to prove sufficient funds? Like, those things are all super secondary that I don't think are really going to play a big role in this. It's these little things, you guys, that are going to trip you up and cause you problems. Next on the list here is number 4. You are simply not eligible for the program. So some people may try to apply, and this is the frustrating part, okay? Because we don't know how many people are going to try this. Maybe you had an H-1B in the past. Maybe your H-1B is not crystallized or officially active. You guys know the steps to those things better than I, but maybe you're not an official working H-1B visa holder in the US. We don't know what those restrictions are, but we're definitely going to have to watch carefully to see what the clear eligibility parameters are around this program. But generally speaking, as long as you are, in the range, there's no harm in applying. Some people may be living in India. Maybe they're in a different country. They've already left the US. Maybe their H-1B visa isn't expired necessarily, but they've lost their jobs and they were required to leave after 60 days, which maybe that does mean the H-1B is expired. But you know what I'm getting at here. There's very few restrictions on this, But if you're not eligible for the program, you're not eligible. And then finally, the last little piece, which many people don't even think about, and that's admissibility to Canada. Yes, there are certain people, because of what you've done in the past, that would make you inadmissible to Canada. And no matter how good your application is, no matter how perfect it is, if you are inadmissible, you're just not getting in. So what's a classic example in the US? Well, wow, for probably 20 years, I've worked with international companies transferring American citizens and permanent residents and temporary foreign workers from the US to Canada for work assignments. One of the more common reasons that things fall apart is criminality in the US. And the varying criminal code provisions across all the various states are not 100% aligned with Canadian criminal code provisions. So for example, in the US, driving under the influence, or a DUI or DWI or whatever it is, those offenses in the US in some states may not be super serious. They may be considered more of a misdemeanor offense than a felony. But in Canada, those are actually considered serious criminality. And so if you have any type of a criminal offense in the US, it can trip you up and it can cause you to be inadmissible. But not just you. If you have a spouse that maybe is planning on accompanying you, and maybe they have issues with admissibility. And then of course, there's the reality. Maybe you guys have applied to Canada in the past and been rejected and received those 5-year bars. And obviously if that 5-year bar is there, and you're not going to be able to overcome it when you're applying, if it's still within that 5-year time period. So there's a whole bunch of other aspects to this, but these are just some things to get you thinking. And these are genuinely legitimate top reasons why applications get rejected. Now, in fairness, I could take a few seconds here, and probably I will shift over. We'll drop this, we'll pull up the main heading, and I'll give you a few bonus items that, just off the top of my head, and maybe even within the questions. And please, if you have additional questions, go ahead and post them. Some of the other things, some of you may come from countries where, if you've got a family, I strongly encourage you to have a marriage certificate and a birth certificate for any dependent children to show, the family unit. Often those are in different languages. If you're coming from India, it's all in English generally. But if you come from other countries like Mexico, maybe, possibly the marriage certificate and the birth certificates you have need to be translated. And so it is July the 12th today. This goes live July 16th. If you're in that situation, I would go immediately and get those documents translated by a certified translator as quickly as possible. All right. Now, we don't know, like I said, which exact portal it's going to be. One portal has you uploading PDF forms. Those forms are not always readily apparent which ones you're to upload. And there are some pretty serious inconsistencies in the document checklists for all the various work permits to Canada. So you have to, in some cases, sort all of this out. And so it's entirely possible that you choose the wrong form and you upload it. So you have to pay close attention to the specific instructions that IRCC is asking for. And like I said, in my course, I go out of my way to provide the forms, all the different forms that potentially have been used in work permit applications in the past, particularly for US residents, people living in the US who are looking to apply to Canada for a work permit. There's country-specific forms. There are document checklists that are geared towards everybody who are applying overseas. There are country-specific checklists. And then when you go into the portals, they have their own kind of goofy checklists. And so in the course, I go through all of the forms and even how to complete them, even though there's a good chance that many of these are not even going to be required. But it's all about education, teaching, getting you up to speed with what you need to know, and then giving you the tools to file your own application. Now, I'm an immigration lawyer. Do I get calls right now from tons of people who want to retain our firm to help them file their application? Yes. But I will reiterate time and time again that you need to ask the right questions. If you hire this great, fantastic firm who's all over the internet, who looks like the top firm in the Canadian immigration world, whether they're immigration lawyers or consultants, you need to ask them a very simple question. Who is filing my application? And am I number 1 on the list? In other words, if you are number 2 on the list and they'll get to you after they file someone before you, do not under any circumstance go with them, because it could take them so long to complete that first application that by the time they get around to you, you'll be out of luck. And personally, I think that's unethical. So how many people does Mark have that his firm is actually representing? We actually only took one person, one family. And I'm going to devote all of my time to that one applicant and his family. I will not take any other applicants and prejudice them by having them queue up behind the first client, hoping that I will get to them and then get their application submitted in time. And if the application is really being submitted in the IRCC portal, where I think it probably will be, it's consuming. It takes a lot of time, and it's not just uploading forms. So just a little piece of advice. That's why I hope people will instead let me teach you how to do it yourself. Yes, if you've got a great lawyer that you trust, that you know you're number one on the list, or an immigration consultant that is wonderful, and it's not just someone representing you that they've hired off of the street to file your application, ask the questions before you sign the contract. Who specifically is working on my application? Who specifically will be filing it? And in many cases, when we're going through this process, I want to also advise you that we don't know if the representative portal, where representatives are submitting applications, if they're even going to be able to use it. Maybe they might be able to, but in all likelihood, it's going to be a portal that you alone must have access to. And I won't even get into the legalities of a representative pretending to be you. When I work with my client, they maintain their password, their login. We use Zoom to connect together, and through a screen share, I review and we go through everything, upload together, we work together, but the client has control in submitting at the end. And then that information is disclosed to IRCC that I assisted them in reviewing and submitting, but I don't represent them before immigration. Please communicate directly with them. And that's how we do it. But this course that I have, it is literally designed to help you guys navigate your way through this whole process. And if you're wondering what it's about, all you have to do is just click right here on the link below, and it'll take you right here. And then all you have to do is click on here to learn more and enroll. And within this process, all of the masterclasses that I've done, and I will do another one right at 7 o'clock here. So you're welcome to enroll now and join me tonight at 7. I do masterclasses every single evening from 7 to 9. No question goes unanswered. And then on Friday and Saturday, because I've got a bunch of stuff going on, the masterclass is actually going to be from 9 to 11 Mountain Time. And I know that's late. It really is late. But I need you guys to be able to access these without being stressed about work. And, why does the government even choose to launch the program on a Sunday? Well, probably because they know people are working in the US. And that's why I chose to basically give up the next, these past 2 weeks, meeting with the students in the course for 2 hours every evening to answer every question, to get them up to speed with every change so that they're completely ready to pivot no matter which direction immigration goes. Okay, let's go back and let's answer some questions from our fine folks who are attending live. We'll answer a few questions, and then I've got to get ready for my masterclass that will start at 7 in about half an hour here. And like I said, there's still time for many of you to subscribe and to be admitted right in. I've asked Igor to be ready to admit anyone in who decides to join us and wants to jump in on the masterclass in half an hour. Okay. Let's pull up Tanvir. I think this is a disappointed kind of response, but did the TR to PR fail for inconsistencies showcased by IRCC? The TR to PR didn't fail. It was actually a phenomenally successful program. And we are seeing some TR to PR applications getting rejected now because the people in the race to file did it wrong. But the TR to PR pathway was actually extremely successful. Okay, Kaos says, are there any forms you recommend completing to be potentially prepared? Absolutely. The forms I pulled out, and I'm just going to go right into my own course material here, and I'll read out the form numbers for you that I think are going to form a part of this application process, or could potentially be. So what are my top list of forms? Well, let me read them off. The IMM 1295, which is the outside of Canada work permit form. If you have children or that are applying for a study permit, then it's the IMM 1294 study permit. And you can go to the IRCC website, go IRCC forms, and it will take you to the place where you can search for these individual forms. In most cases, the IMM 5257, which is the TRV application form, there will be potentially the IMM 5707, which is the family information form, which usually the principal applicant will complete. But sometimes I've seen the government also ask spouses, accompanying spouses, to complete either that 5707 form or one that's very similar called the 5645. And then if you have a family you're including, some portals will ask you to complete the IMM 5713, which is the family representative form. And and then in some cases, in addition to all of that, there's also the IMM 5409, which is the statutory declaration of common law union, if you are in a common law relationship and want to bring your spouse. And generally speaking, that's it. I guess as a couple shout outs, there's the IMM 5922, which is the US work permit checklist. There's the generic IMM 5488, which is the generic work permit checklist. And wrapping it up, there is the guide 5487, which is the guide for applying for work permits from outside of Canada. Now, the reality is the vast majority of information in those is probably going to be considerable overkill, but that's the list that I have. Okay, and in the course, I'll teach you how to fill all those forms out, have them ready, saved just in case they're needed. And if come Saturday, they release information, details, and it's really the IRCC portal versus the IRCC secure account, then none of those forms will be specifically required, but my clients will have already collected all the information they need to fill in the information into the web form questions, if that's the way it goes. Okay. All right. Duvina says, hi, sir, watching from Mauritius. Thank you for connecting in. Okay. Cost is proof of funds document likely required, similarly as needed for a PR. What I recommend for my clients, because in one place in the IRCC portal, in that document checklist, which I talk about in the course, they ask for 4 months of bank statements. So that's what I'd encourage you have ready. Just print off 4 months of bank statements. It doesn't need to be as crazy as the express entry process in terms of specific letters from banks. So simple bank statements showing you've got some funds. And how much funds? Well, in most cases, work permit folks don't really need any. You know, when you're applying for a work permit, in some cases overseas, they might want to see that you've got funds, at least to support yourself. But when you've got a job and you can come to Canada and hit the pavement running, they don't usually worry too much about it. So just because this is an open work permit, then maybe what I recommend is that people, at the very, very least, just have 4 months of bank statements. Okay. All right. Krish says, just in case we missed adding documents during the application filing on July 16th, the IRCC officer reviewing the application will reach out to us for documents or the application will be refused. Krish, this world of expedited processing of IRCC, they have adhered very, very closely to what we call in the industry as R10. And R10 is a way in which they can do a one-touch processing policy, which means if your application isn't complete, it's way easier for them to just return it back to you and tell you to refile, resubmit, than to have to hold it, ask for information, enter it into the system, wait for you to send it back, update it to the file, reassess. It takes 3 times as long to process an application. And here's another pro tip. As an immigration lawyer and as the former national chair of the CBA immigration section, I had lots of opportunities to talk to officers. And in our most recent national conference, one of the reports that we received from the officers, at least the department heads within immigration, is that immigration officers have between 3 to 10 minutes to process a work permit. So it's all going to be about speed. Now, Krish, it's possible they could be kind, but let's face it. They know you guys are sophisticated, smart, intelligent. They expect you to follow the guides, even though they can be really confusing, and get things right the first time. And my goal with my course is to make sure that you guys actually do get it right the first time. So I would never, ever count on having a second opportunity to correct deficiencies in the application. And the TR to PR pathway folks can attest to that. Many got their applications rejected because they were missing things. Many did. Okay. Grav says, do I need to submit representative form for a child or spouse? Generally speaking, I never include those for children. If someone is using a representative, an actual representative, then that representative should give them the use of representative form to complete and sign. When you're going through, for example, the GC key, the IRCC secure account, if you indicate that you're including family, sometimes they will ask you to upload what I've referred to as the family representative form, the IMM 5713. And in that case, the reason it's that way is that you're basically getting your spouse or any children over 18 who are adults to sign off and say, I authorize the principal applicant, my husband or my wife, who's the principal applicant on this application, to sign and submit on my behalf. And I attest that everything in that application is true, complete, and correct. And my spouse will confirm that for me. Okay. So the IMM 5713 is not one I see a lot, but it did pop up as I was canvassing every possible, form that IRCC could throw at you guys. So there you go, Grav. Okay. Beulah says, my kids have 2 passports. Do I have to upload both? You're going to disclose if the questions are specifically asked about multiple citizenships, because we'll have to see what happens. Pick the one that's, if you got one that's visa exempt, one that doesn't require a visa to come to Canada, use that passport. All right. That's what I recommend. Okay. Let's see if we've got a little bit more here. Each have 2 passports, one before renewal and other one is after renewal, but the old one has the US stamp. Oh, I see what you're saying. Not citizenships, but 2 passports. In that case, yeah, you can bundle them together. If you've got a US visa that's still valid in an old passport, then yeah, bundle them together. 2 megabytes is probably what I'm shooting for size, because that's going to be the minimum, at least for it's the minimum it's the maximum allowed for the portal that has the smallest allowance for file size. I'm trying to find the right words here. Okay, hopefully that's helpful, Beulah. Oh, it's getting close to my masterclass. I got to wrap this up here quick. Let's get to a few more questions for you guys. Okay, app says, if we get open work permit, does that add any score in express entry CRS score? Not the work permit itself, but coming to Canada, working for a year, that is what makes the difference. If you're married, you can get up to 35 points for the first year. If you're single, they give you 40 points for that first year of work experience. So just having the work permit doesn't add any points for an open work permit. All right, Tanvir. Okay, let's see what Tanvir has to say. TR to PR, international grad stream. My program was 1 year and was eligible after confirmation with 2 IRCC agents, but after the program launch was ineligible. Unfortunately, I got refusal due unfairness. Yeah, Tanvir, I hear you. It's really, really sad. I had a lot of battles with IRCC regarding that, and there were some people that were successful and others that were ineligible. So my heart goes out to you. All right, last question. Blue Kelp says, would having to submit biometrics affect the application timing? Well, yeah, it may. Those who do not need to complete biometrics because they already did it, they already have a valid temporary resident visa, then you're not going to be asked to recomplete biometrics. And the only timing, it's not going to affect whether or not you're in. Once you're in and you submit, you will fill one of those 10,000 spots. They will then prompt you to complete the biometrics, and then you will travel to Canada. So that's kind of how it works. So whether or not you need the biometrics, it's not going to affect whether or not you can get in and click submit and get into the pool for the first 10,000 spots. All right, we've got a couple more jumping in here. Grav IRCC portal ask for representation for each kid and spouse if I am submit single group application worth preparing. So once again, Grav, when it comes to the children, you do not need to have them appoint you as a representative. By the simple fact you're their parents, that's sufficient. Your spouse, yes, they could complete that form. But remember, we do not know 100%. And if you're talking about the IRCC portal, we don't know with 100% degree exactly what's going to be in there and what isn't. They could tweak it such that if you selected H-1B work permit, then there may be a different set of document checklists. But generally speaking, that type of a thing is not a make or break, because as a principal applicant and a family group, they know that you are family. Okay, Jamaica says, if I have a visiting visa, do I need to do a police record if applying for PR? Yep, you do. What are the specifications if you need to upload a photo? If you look at IRCC's instructions, it's pretty simple. Just go IRCC digital photo specifications, and essentially with the digital photos, just go get what would be considered a passport photo and just scan and upload it. Make sure the resolution is clear and they can see you. And it's a regular kind of passport size photo, but go to the IRCC photo specifications, temporary residence, and that's what you'll use. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for connecting in. And I hope this was helpful, and anything that I can do to support you guys in this journey. I really, really want people to be successful. And I want people to be empowered, to know that you can do this. And, you know, as long as you have the right tools, as long as you have the support you need, you can be successful in this journey. And as I slide over here once again, the link to joining us in 18 minutes in the next masterclass, we will have them 7 to 9 every evening, and then 9 to 11, I should say, until Thursday, today and tomorrow, 7 to 9. And then Friday and Saturday, it will be 9 to 11. And trust me, you guys will know everything that you need to know to be successful in this process. Okay. I'm sorry. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, TR, Beulah, and Ka and Roshak about the 2024 approval. I'm not sure, because it does say a holder, right? So now I better get a drink. Okay, guys, thanks very much for tuning in. And yeah, click on the link below to join us. I'd love to see you there, and give me a shout out. Thanks, guys.